ask you this quick question though. On the servers, how many people at a one time can be on the server though? Is it 64?
24.
24. So no matter what server you pick, official server, it's only going to be 24 people on there.
Well, there's not going to be any server picking. The closest you'll be able to do as far as picking your server is joining in on your friend who's already playing or having them join you. As far as picking your server, it's going to load you into whatever server.
Okay, well then how is it going to be if you set up a base or something? You just randomly have to start over again, or you can't jump on the same server where your base is at?
Well, from what I understand, wherever your base is built at, that should be where your base still is. So, I mean...
Oh, so it doesn't matter what server you're on. If you build a structure on it, it's going to be there right once you load up that any server.
For your personal base, and this kind of comes into the base.
Gotcha.
And this is where it's going to come into kind of the base building aspects. There's a couple different bases you can make. So there is your personal base. It's called a camp. It's basically a little machine you set up, and that is where your house is at. It kind of gives you an area to build in, and you build there. Now, when you log off, your base disappears. It's still tied to you, though. So when you log back on, your base should still be there. The only question I would run into, what if you log into a server where your base is already... somebody else already has a base there. That's when I think the game will kind of push you towards a server that doesn't have somebody else's base built there. Although with some of the more popular areas, I'm wondering how that's going to work if, somebody has, a lot of people are finding this one spot that they want their base at. How's that going to work if everyone's got their base built and you try to load in? That's one thing I am kind of curious about. Maybe it makes you rebuild it somewhere for free, because you can move your base too. You can move your entire base. It costs caps to do it, because your base can also get destroyed, but apparently it costs caps. It's supposed to be fairly cheap to rebuild or to move it, but we'll see exactly how well balanced that is. But that's one thing that I think will eventually have to be addressed, is what happens
if... Are there certain areas on the map, or is this a whole new map? Are there going to be certain areas on the map that are probably going to be more, I guess, better spots to pick then? Or is it certain... Well, what do you look for when you're going to put a base? Do you need water source, food, or whatever? Is it...
Well, you're going to need food and water. I mean, it is still going to be a survival game, so you are going to need food and water. There are diseases you can get, so you're going to have to watch out for that. There are going to be airborne hazards that you might need a gas mask for, so you got to watch out for that. So I'm sure there are going to end up being, plenty of places to build at that are safe and have these things, but I'm sure there are going to be plenty of bases, and this is where it's going to come into the second type of base. Plenty of bases that are like near to other resources that you're going to want to build at, especially
the first type is a camp, right?
Camp. First type is a camp. The second type is, I forgot what it's officially called, but it's basically a temporary base, really meant to be held by a group. And what it is again, you're out building in the world, you're trying to gather up scrap and stuff. You're basically going to run into these workshops, and what they are is, exactly what it sounds like. They're like little factories. So you basically take over the workshop. You could either take it over from other players who were there, so you'll take them and can test the area. Or if you are the first ones there, then essentially you might have to fight off, so many, swarms of, robots or mutant dogs or something. And when you do, you take over that base. Once you take it over, you can repair the machinery there, and it'll start pumping out items for you, a certain item. Like there's one that we saw during the stream that if they'd fix it up, it would start pumping out an item called fusion cores. Fusion cores run the iconic armor, the power armor that Fallout's known for, that big hulking armor you see people walk around for. Those take fusion cores to run. So it's not just the piece of armor you get on, it's actually essentially a small vehicle that you actually step into, and you need power or fusion cores to run those. So that would be
like an Iron Man suit or something, huh?
Exactly, that's the best way to describe it. So I think, places close to that will probably be, some of the more popular places to get.
Well, you can take those over, but you can't. They're only temporary. You can't, once you log out, you don't keep that base.
Yes, you can build there and everything, but once you log out, once the last person in your group is gone, or once you guys leave, then it disappears and it's up for grabs again. So that might be one thing, places.
I would see a little hiccup on that though. If you've got 4 people in a group and you got 4 of you in different time zones around the world, you could literally have somebody logged on all the time.
True, but it's also going to depend on what all you can build too. You can still build things like turrets in the game. You can, I'm thinking, and that's one of the words I have, what if there is a bigger clan, maybe of let's say, 100 people, and, they just take turns, letting their squad take over this spot. They build it up really nice. What happens if it's, just always contested? Is that going to be a way to get out of that? Like you can only have 4 people in a group. Let's say you have a group of 4 people, take over an area. You could very easily have 3 people drop out of the group and they got to go. Have 3 more come in, join the last person's squad, and you've still got your 4-person squad. How
Yep,
is that going to work?
exactly. Yep, yep.
And then you can easily just have another person leave. I mean, there are ways to get into the server that your buddies are at. So let's say
Yeah.
form a group, have everybody, this group right there, have 12 more people join in on those people, and then they all form a group, 16. I mean, there are ways around that. I mean, we've seen it in other games too, so it's not
Yeah.
too hard to get past it, unless they make it to where when you leave the group, you automatically leave that, server too. So unless they do something like that, then it'd be pretty easy to take over one of these
What about
spots really
this though?
permanently.
If you got 4 people at say like let's call it 4, but is there another if another friend starts his own squad of 4? Can they work together within the game?
And
And
that's
still use the like if that one group claims that camp, can the other 4 people use the stuff in there like the I don't know workstations or whatever?
they probably wouldn't be able to use it because it wouldn't be technically controlled by their group, but they could very easily help defend it. And then you can trade items within the game. You can sell
Ah,
players items. You can make your own economy. The players sell items to each other. You can trade. You
all
can
right.
give them for free. So you could very easily have 2, 3, 4 groups in there. Have them
Yeah.
all working to protect one area, protect this workshop, and then as you've got a hold of it, you're just dividing up the items between those groups.
Okay. Yeah. That's what I when I saw Scum when it came out, they were there was groups of 17, 18 people in a clan taking over a whole sector, and you just can't come up and fight up against that. You can't. There's no way when you got 2, 3 man groups and you're going in there. You got a whole clan of 40, 50 guys or whatever
Yeah.
taking turns. Yeah,
So again,
that
that's
could be a
definitely
potential problem.
definitely a potential issue there. So that's the other kind of workshop you go. I mean, it's called a workshop, I believe, but that's the other kind of little base you can
Is
have.
there
And again,
another
it's
one?
temporary.
All right.
Just
Then
two,
it's
just two.
okay. Then the work. Okay.
Now, from what I understand, there should be spots too, because right now the camp is just for you to build. From what I'm
Uh-huh.
understanding, unless they were talking about the workshops, there should be some places where you can build bigger settlements for you and your buddies to all build at. So actually, not a workshop, but a place where you and your friends could actually build together. As of right
Now, when you
now,
say build, are you building walls, roofs, doors,
yes,
all of that stuff?
yes.
Oh, I didn't know that. It had it in there.
Yeah,
Right at the end.
it's basically Fallout 4's building system. Fallout 4 does have a settlement system in it, which oddly enough was a mod for Fallout New Vegas. So a lot of us think that Bethesda kind of ripped off that mod and added in the idea, but that's neither here nor there. Yes, there is base building in Fallout 4, and that's been transferred over to 76. You can actually make your own bases. You can make turrets. You can make all sorts of workstations. From there, you can modify your armor and weapons. There are different schematics for weapons and armor out in the world you can find to actually make. You can make weapons from, I don't know if you can make weapons from scratch. I think you can once you find the schematic. There are different mods for weapons that'll give them, make them more powerful, give them bigger magazines, or add like, I saw one buff during one of the exclusive streams that it made your opponent you were fighting in PvP do 20% less damage for a certain amount of time. So there are a lot of different things you can do. Your camp's going to be your main hub where you build up
So
an
when you
actual.
build, are you building from scratch? Like I know in Rust you build a foundation and you start building from that. Is that or with this one do you build it from scratch, or do you have to take over existing POI and start
Scratch.
modifying it?
Scratch,
Okay,
pretty
you have
much.
to build from scratch. Okay.
And if it's anything like Fallout 4's building system, there are some prefab small buildings you can put up that are basically just empty shells. You
Mm-hmm.
can, build a foundation from scratch and put up every single wall and light bulb you want to. Had a pretty extensive building system in Fallout 4. And again, lots of defensive stuff. Your base will be able to get attacked. Your camp will be able to get attacked by wild creatures. So you want to put up turrets. Excuse me.
Oh, really?
Yep.
They don't have to be aggroed in that, so they're just wandering around
I'm not
like
sure. I think it might be
robots and
more.
stuff.
I think it might be more of an event. I think some will wander around. Some might be an event, and other players can wander up as well too.
So and there's
Players
no like in 7 Days to Die is every 7 days, but this is just nonstop. You have to keep your defenses up nonstop. Then.
pretty much, and other
Okay.
players can come in and they can steal some items. They can't steal from any of your containers, from what I understand. But if you have like plants planted or stuff, they can like pick your plants.
Oh, there's a gardening system too, where you have to plant gardens and stuff.
That's what we've been told. I haven't seen it yet, but yeah, that's what we've
Okay.
been told. It would mark you as a criminal taking somebody's stuff, so I'm not sure how that one would work. You'd likely get a bounty, just like killing somebody. But yeah, you will be able to. Basically, you're gonna be able to farm. You're gonna want to make like water purifiers and stuff. You're gonna need food. So I mean, it is a straight up survival game. You're gonna need to have the food and
Wow.
water and medicine to survive, and you are gonna need to defend yourself. So like
All
you
right, to
said,
be
it's
honest
like
with you, talking to you tonight on this too, I was kind of skeptical before about playing it, but it seems like a really interesting game now that talking to you about it. It's like I didn't know it had all of that stuff in it. I thought it was just single person. You run around doing little quests, and you got a little dog, and he does this, and you get this gun and do this and this and this, and then the game's over. But this
well,
sounds really interesting to me, coming from the survival multi-person kind of games that I like.
yeah, and again, from that same mindset myself, again, I happen to like Fallout and I happen to like the same kind of survival crafting games you do. So even if this
Mm-hmm.
is just like Rust with a Fallout skin, this does
Mm-hmm.
interest me.
Yeah.
Now, that being said, there are still a couple of other little issues that I kind of wanted to go over as well, because there are a couple other
Yeah.
things that kind of deviate from the normal Fallout. But again, looking at it from an outside point of view, to me, some of it might make sense. Taking the game, and one of the main things that people tell you to do too with this is don't take it as a Fallout, traditional Fallout game. Look at it
Mm-hmm.
as its own game, and it looks a lot more appealing to me like that. At the same time, there's still a couple of concerns like I had with the workshop. So will it be able to just keep it on lockdown forever? That's one concern
Mm-hmm.
that I have, having played games like this before. I mean, I played games like online Minecraft, and if you've been on like Anarchy server stuff like that, there's some insane stuff you can do there.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I mean, well, I've had entire spawn points locked down before. I mean, like, back in the day, I was kind of an ass, but I don't do that kind of stuff anymore.
Yeah, but it sounds like this company is behind their product and developing it in the right direction. I think they're going for a different chunk of the pie, so to speak. They're giving multiplayer and the multiplayer online kind of genre. They're kind of dipping into that, which is cool.
Yeah, and again, I
And
mean,
if they do it right,
yeah,
it'll
exactly.
definitely draw me in.
If they do it right, and that's a big one
Yeah,
too that we're worried about. I mean, again, some people just don't want to play an online Fallout game, which I can understand. Some people just hardcore single player. Some people want to play with other people. Some just kind of want to do a little bit of everything. So if they do this
yeah,
right, yeah, it could be awesome. If they do it wrong, could be where some issues come up. And here's another one that is kind of come up as well too. So traditionally in Fallout, and really any Bethesda RPG, it's a single player game. So there are certain items that you're going to be able to find in the world that are just always going to be there. Legendary
hmm
weapons and items and armor, that kind of thing. Based traditionally, you can play it however you want to. If you can somehow get to an area that's, maybe a little bit harder and find, the legendary shotgun or whatever, or,
uh-huh.
find, XO1 power armor, I mean, it's yours. Now, what we're finding in Fallout 76 is that there are actually, and again, from a MMO perspective, this makes sense, but from a Fallout perspective, this is something that has thrown everybody for a loop. There are actual level requirements for armor and weapons now. So,
What do you mean
yeah,
level? You have to be a certain level to be able to claim that weapon.
you can apparently pick them up, but you can't use them to get to certain levels. So just like any other MMOs, like WoW or Elder
Oh,
Scrolls Online, or basically any other MMO you would play, I mean, they all have level requirements for most of their items. So from that perspective, it makes sense. But from a Fallout perspective, this is a completely alien concept.
yeah. Well, you could take that weapon and put it in your box and hold on to it till you get to the right level. Correct?
Yeah, you can store all these things till
Okay.
later on. So it's
I
not
mean, that's
like
kind of like 7 days to die. You can get an auger, but once it breaks, you can't fix it unless you know the schematic for the auger.
exactly.
So, I mean,
So that's just one of me, and just to show you how alien this is. I mean, this has been one of the things that we've just learned after this event that the YouTubers did. But that's how alien of a concept this is for a Fallout or Elder Scrolls series. Yes,
mm,
technically in the Fallout games, I mean, you can make any, there are actually crafting systems in the game. So take Fallout 4, for example. You can get I think, a hunting rifle. When you get to a certain level, you can actually put or earn the perks to modify it certain ways. There's actually an armorer perk and a gunsmithing perk where you can actually
uh,
craft, silencers and suppressors for it. But you got to be high enough level to do it. You could buy them too, but no matter what, if you had the perks to do it, or if you actually found them, you could use them.
okay. On a
Like,
side note on that, you're talking about the levels. Now, if my character does he keep his same levels? I use the same character from my Steam account when I jump into it.
Okay, it's not going to be through Steam. That's another thing that people have been thrown a little bit loop by.
Oh,
It's only through Bethesda. Now, I kind of
okay.
understand why they did some of this, but yeah, this is not going to be through Steam. It's going to be through Bethesda. I forgot the reason that they did it. I think they just want to have a bit more control over how this works, especially when it
Okay.
comes to, letting you mod the game later on, which we'll hopefully have time to talk about. But it has been
Okay.
kind of a strange choice that this is not actually available through Steam. It is only available through Bethesda, or obviously getting your hard copy. I got a digital copy.
Yeah. Okay. If I have my on my hard drive, then I have my character, and it's leveled up to say level 8 or whatever. I don't know what the levels are. But
Hmm.
if I go into another game or stop playing for a week or two and then jump back in, I'm going to retain those levels.
Yeah, basically
My
like any
character.
other MMO. I mean, whatever.
Okay.
It's your
Okay.
account's going to be tied to Bethesda, not to
Okay.
your computer. So let's say you just
Awesome.
completely get rid of the game, download it again a year later, and let's say for some reason deleted your information, then yeah, it should still be there. You'll be
Okay.
level 8 with
Perfect.
whatever you
Yeah.
had.
That's what I like. Okay. That's good.
So that
Well, how
one.
many levels are there in the game? I guess.
And this is another, well, not quite a slight change, but this is one that's a little bit weird. So, in Fallout games, there has been traditionally a level cap.
Mm-hmm.
So it's usually been around like level, I think in Fallout New Vegas, it was level 30. And then as each DLC came out, they would increase it by 5. So
Mm-hmm.
I think you ended up being like 50 without mods in New Vegas. And Fallout 4, they changed that. You can keep leveling up as much as you want. So you can eventually get every perk and special point, and I'm going to have to explain a quick
Mm-hmm.
system to you.
Yeah.
So there
That's
is,
those are the cards, right?
well, no, no,
Oh.
that's going to sound
Okay.
something
Okay.
different. Okay, so there is something called special, SPECIAL. Is your basic stats. So if you're playing any kind of table, any RPG really, it's strength, perception, endurance, intelligence, charisma, agility, and luck. Your 7 stats.
Okay.
So traditionally, you would choose your starting stats, and then depending on what stats you had, as you leveled up, you would get to choose different perks or choose to level up one of those stats to a higher level, which would in turn let you use some of the higher level perks. So, for example, there would be perks that would let you have extreme accuracy. Using
Mm-hmm.
certain weapons or less. If you had higher strength, you'd have less sway on your weapon when aiming down sights, that kind of thing. In Fallout 3 in New Vegas, that's how it worked with the level cap. So you couldn't just have a jack of all trades character. You kind of had to specialize,
You
or
specialize in a sniper or
yeah, highly
intelligence
specialize
or
in a
yeah.
couple of things, or just kind of have a bit of a jack of all trade character. But you couldn't
Okay.
be just an all powerful guy. Fallout 4, they changed that and made you could basically get every perk there was. So you could get up to 10 points naturally in any of your special points. You could further, boost them up using, armor pieces or certain chems, which are, buffs. And you can get them up to like 10, 12, 15 temporarily or using armor pieces, but 10 was basically the max. And depending on what your special points were, you would be able to access different perks. Now, in 3 in New Vegas, you would basically choose from a pool of total perks, and you would unlock more perks depending on what you had unlocked in your special and what your actual character level was. So, for example, lock picking. There's 4 different levels to lock picking. Novice.
Mm-hmm.
And the other 3 levels above that, or 2 levels above it. And you had to have, I think, a certain level of perception to get the higher levels of lock picking. And
And the
Fall,
lock picking is opening up the loot boxes, I guess, and being able to the chance for you to open it.
well,
Pick
picking a lock period, you can't even.
Okay.
There's actually a mini game when you pick a lock, you can't even attempt to open it unless you have the right level to do it. And then once you do have the right level, then you get a chance to open it up if you have, the
Okay.
bobby pins is what you use. But the harder the lock was, the harder it would be to actually do. So all the lock picking skill did was kind of the gateway to open it up. You still have to use your own actual real life skill to open it up. So, and the harder the lock was, the harder it was to find that sweet spot to open it up. But that's the way that worked. Same with computer hacking. You needed a high, computer hacking skill to access certain terminals. To even have a chance to actually hack the computer, you had to have a high enough skill, and then you got access to the minigame to let you hack it.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this: how do you increase those skills, or like
Um,
locksmithing or intelligence, or
Whenever you would level up, depending on which game it was, whenever you level up or every other level, you would get a chance to either choose a perk based off of what your current special stats were, or there was another perk that would let you train up one of those stats. So,
okay?
for
Well,
example,
how do
let's
you? I mean,
say
how do you level up? Do you help level up by killing things or getting quests done, or
Yeah,
building something or
basically everything. Killing things
okay.
is a big one. Questing gives you, a ton, the most
Okay, so it's
usually.
not like I'm coming from a 7 days to die perspective. Like, in order to level up your mining skills, you got to use the mining tool. It's nothing like that. It's just you constantly gaining uh, points towards your leveling up.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Everything you do
Okay,
is just it's a base pool of experience, and then from there, once you
okay,
actually level up, then you would choose what you wanted to specialize in more. So I mean, I could
okay,
level up in Fallout 4, crafting a bunch of weapon mods, and then after I leveled up, I could get something that had nothing to do with weapon mods. I can get increase my sneak skill or increase my luck stat. So it's just one
okay.
pool of experience.
You sure you're not working on commission on this, brother? Because you're convincing me to get this goddamn game. I'm like, damn, this sounds cool.
Well, and this is not me trying to convince you. Again, I
No, no, but it
openly admitted
sounds a
that
lot better.
well, and again, this is kind of where a lot of the contention is coming from because from the outside perspective, I had no idea what this would look like from the outside. And
Uh,
again, I've actually been watching some of the gameplay and stuff. I know you're kind of coming into this as a Fallout virgin, as it were, and you've only seen,
yeah.
like little bits of it. But again, this is something that has traditionally been a single player type game. And just the fact that it's online and all the things that would come from being an online Fallout game seems to be what has actually made the community butt heads. That and the creation of Fallout 4, and I'm going to kind of explain what I mean by that. I
Oh,
keep
they didn't like
different.
that one either.
I keep differentiating between Fallout 3 New Vegas and Fallout 4.
Uh,
Um, Fallout 3 and New Vegas, again, New Vegas has been hailed as the best one, the best RPG, and Fallout 3 and New Vegas definitely are more of an RPG feel than Fallout 4 is. When Fallout
mm-hmm.
4 came out, and even I have to admit this, it feels like a dumbed down version of Fallout that would appeal to more people. It's more
Ah,
of a first person shooter and less RPG aspects. It's still
okay.
RPG aspects, but not nearly as much as the first two. For example, in Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas, there is a karma system. So you can typically play these games however you want to. You can be an evil bastard if you want, or you can be the patron saint of fucking radiation. But
Uh-huh.
you would choose how you want to play, and there was actually a karma system that would tell you how good or how evil you were based on your choices. So, for example, just to give you an idea of some of the choices you would get in Fallout, the first town you would come across in Fallout 3 is called Megaton. It
Mm-hmm.
was called that because there was a giant unexploded nuclear bomb in the middle of the town. They built the town up around it. One of the options you get later on in the game is whether or not you want to blow that bomb up and wipe the town out. Then depending on whether you
Whether
deactivated the
that was
bomb
good or bad karma.
permanently, yeah, depending on whether you deactivated it, which would be, good karma, or, blew it up, bad karma, would determine, what karma you get. So, I
Okay.
mean, big choices that would, universally be considered good, it's not too hard to figure out what would be good and what would be bad. I mean, you could
Yeah,
murder
yeah.
people, you could steal, which would give you bad karma, murdering innocent people, bad karma. I mean, there are a lot of choices where you can do stuff like, enslave people in certain games, put bomb collars on them and enslave them, some into slavery, bad karma, but you could play that type of character if you wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
Fallout 4, they got rid of the karma system. So no matter what you did, there's no karma system. Now, people, pissed off about that. They can't. I, I can understand them removing the system and people being upset about removing it. At the same
Yeah,
time, I don't need a karma system to tell me if I'm good or evil.
exactly.
At the same time, though, there is also certain perks you could get depending on whether your character was good or evil. So there were, perks that revolved around you being bad, like the cannibal perk. You could actually eat other humans. That'd be considered bad. And I think you got that if you had so much bad karma. There were good perks that, kind of gave you, buffs and different abilities if you were playing a good character. So that's something that was kind of removed from the game.
But is there an end game on Fallout 3 then, or because to me, I think if it's no end game, you're just running around, playing the game.
Well, I mean, it is a story
Okay.
based game. So I mean, it is a pretty long game, and it does have DLCs that came out with it. So when the base game came out, when you beat the game, spoiler alert for anybody who hadn't played it. Sorry, Jim, you got to hear us regardless. But the end of the game, your character actually died. You actually had to step into a room full of extremely deadly radiation to essentially provide pure water for the entire wasteland. That's the entire game was based around purifying water.
And
So
that was
you,
your goal. Like in this one, you say you step out of the bunker. 76, your goal is to get humanity back up in the United States.
Basically. But again, that's just the base game. DLCs came out for it later on, and they changed it to where after that scene where you would die, it turns out you didn't die. You just got extremely sick and passed out. You barely survive it, and you continue the game from there with the DLCs that came out with it. For Fallout New Vegas, same thing. There's DLCs for it. Once you beat the main story, I mean, that was it. You beat the game, and it would go back to the last time you saved before the final battle. But there were also DLCs that came along with it, too. So there's plenty of stuff to do. There's more DLC. But typically, once you beat the game, you beat the game. Now, you could always go back to an old save and continue doing other quests you haven't done, start a new character, or do those DLCs. And traditionally, there's been about 4 DLCs for those 2 games. And that brings us to the next point in Fallout 4, that Fallout 4's DLC kind of sucked. Fallout New Vegas and Fallout 3 both had, I think, 4 DLCs each. They were, story rich, brought you to new locations, really fun, unique items and gear. Fallout 4 had about 6 or so DLCs. Only really about 1.5 of them are really quest based. No, I take it back. 2.5 of them are really quest based.
Okay.
A lot of
You
them.
said there's a lot of modding going on, right? So
Yeah, but the modding community is what has kept it alive, but that shouldn't be what the game is all
are there
about.
Any decent mods?
Oh yeah, there's amazing mods still going on for it, but that
See,
doesn't take
I look
away
at
from the base game though.
Yeah, that's why I look at 7 Days to Die. I mean, I'm playing a vanilla right now, but the modding thing is the fun part for me. It keeps me coming back for more and more.
Yeah, and
Seeing what other people do. So
that will do it too, but you can keep in mind too, these are $60 games plus what you pay for all the DLCs too. So if you're spending $100 for a game, you don't want it to be broken and you want the DLC that comes with it to actually be worth it. So for example, probably the best DLC that Fallout 4 had was, I think its second big one. It was called Far Harbor. It was the biggest DLC that Bethesda's ever made, and it was an amazing DLC. Open-ended, you can there's no karma system still, but you can make choices that were, considered good or evil or kind of morally ambiguous, which is one of the things that Fallout is also known for. There are some choices you have to make that are realistic, but no matter what choice you make, someone's going to get screwed over, and you have to make that difficult choice. It's one of the things that kind of brings Fallout to life, is that this is a post-apocalyptic wasteland. Every choice you make is going to have some kind of consequence, and you're going to have to live with those consequences. So some of the other DLC that came out for it, and this is where they really got hit on with the DLC, is about 4 or so of the DLCs they came out for were just for settlement mode. It was just adding in workshop items. A lot of people didn't like the base building part of Fallout 4. They just wanted a straight up, a Fallout game. Some of us like that aspect. You could actually go around and make settlements and actually build up the Commonwealth and make trading routes and that kind of thing. All it was really a glorified base building system, which again, I like personally when I'm role playing. I like to do that kind of thing. I'm doing it now in my role play. But some people just wanted a straight game, and they were upset, and even I was upset that more than half the DLCs that came out weren't quest-based. They just added in extra stuff for the base building, and modding, as you mentioned, added in a whole lot more stuff. Some of the mods that came out for base building, modders had already modded into the game. For example, one of the DLCs that came out, you could create your own vault. There was already mod out for that like months before that came out. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of a point of contention.
Playing Ark Survival too. There's really good modders that came out with different maps and stuff, and the developers actually took that and actually hired one of the modders on.
Yeah, for the center map.
Yep. Yeah, it was amazing. It's still my favorite if I ever play it again. Yep. Is the center map. I think it's amazing. And hopefully something that can happen here and with the mods and stuff too. For this game too.
Yeah, so that's been the DLC portion for 4 has been kind of a point of contention. And again, the game definitely feels more of a first-person shooter type deal than an RPG. And this brings me up to the next part, is the perks. And I mentioned in the first couple of games that you could get perks as you leveled up. And the perks, I think the best way that someone described how perks for the Fallout games traditionally worked is when you get a perk, it's supposed to be something that altered the way the game itself allowed you to play or function. I think I'm paraphrasing that wrong, but it's basically something that warped the way that you actually could play the game. So, for example, again, the lockpicking perk. You were completely locked out from picking certain locks, getting that perk, kind of lets you do something you couldn't do before. There's another perk that would let you have different speech options unlocked, during speech checks. You would have completely different speech options that would give you totally different options, something that completely warped the way you would play. There were other perks that you can get that would train you to use power armor. In the first 2 games, or in 3 in New Vegas, you couldn't use power armor at all until you were trained to do so. In Fallout 4, you start off doing it, which it does make sense from a lore portion, but I get there in a second. But basically, it's basically a small vehicle. You need to be trained how to do it, and you had to either get a perk or be trained to do it in game. Now, in Fallout 4, you're actually a soldier frozen from before the war, so it makes sense you would know how to use power armor. You used it already.
Yep, exactly. Yep.
Problem is, you can also play as the guy's wife, and while one could say, okay, maybe she would know how to use it because he might have told her or something, there's also a bunch of other random people out in the wasteland who know how to use it, and that doesn't quite make sense. But that's one of
Now, when you're talking about perks, are they microtransactions or are they?
No, these are just basically
Okay,
stats and things you can get as you level. They're like perks that your player gets.
Okay.
Now, in Fallout 76, the way it's going to work is, and this is where you were bringing up the card thing before, there's never been cards before in Fallout, by the way. I'm sorry, I kind of skipped before. Fallout 4, instead of getting perks that really kind of warped the way it changed, it was more things like do 20% more damage with this kind of weapon, or do, 10% more damage with, melee weapon. Like, they didn't feel like Fallout perks. It was just like a chart. And again, in the other 2 games, there was a limit to what you can get. In Fallout 4, you could just keep leveling up and eventually get everything. It did not feel like a Fallout perk system. So that was a little bit weird. I mean, still, I enjoyed the game, even with as much as it seemed to be more of a first-person shooter than the others. But, they made some serious changes, and you can't help but think that they made those changes to appeal to a wider audience versus their base audience. And you can feel that because the base audience, while I think this is the most sold Fallout there is, the base audience are the ones who are complaining about it. Now, from a business standpoint, I get it. Appeal to a wider audience. At the same time, don't bite the hand that feeds you. So I'm kind of torn between that one.
Yeah. But then I look at myself, I play 7 Days to Die, and I'm thinking, God, it's been an alpha for freaking 5 years now. I mean, I'm still going to love the game. So I'm going to bitch and moan about it, all the time and keep calling it 7 years of alpha. But, I mean, after the day's all over, I'm still going to come back and play it. So
exactly, that's the way I am with Fallout.
I just don't want to. I play a game. Don't even play it. It's called Star Citizen. Totally, all these people have been talking about. They've been giving money, and the game's not even progressing the way it should on it. So it pissed off a lot of investors, I call them, when you're buying a game, you're not getting what they promised. So.
Yeah.
I just don't want it to turn out like that, something like that.
Yeah, I've been watching a little bit on how that's been interesting to watch and how that game's been progressing. But yeah, definitely.
But I can see the base fans, getting a little bit upset for a little bit of drama there. But at the end of the day, you got to understand it's a business. They got to keep, getting more profits coming in and more people attracted to the game. Just from listening to you, I'm attracted on it now. I'm like, yeah, I definitely. I'm seriously considered about getting the game that I'm playing.